It's a funny old world, isn't it? Rishi Sunak is now as unpopular as Boris Johnson was when Boris Johnson, due largely to his unpopularity, was compelled to resign as Prime Minister. It's this sort of great myth abroad that he was popular. Even when he won a big majority at the election, his personal popularity ratings weren't that high. I'm talking about Johnson now, not Sunak. But Sunak felt, briefly, like a breath of fresh air, didn't he? I know he was Chancellor. I know that I'm probably the person most grateful for it's a weird one, isn't it? If you're Rishi Sunak at the moment, you'll be breathing a sigh of relief that the Rwanda story, on one level, you'll be breathing a big sigh of relief that the Rwanda mess is dominating the news agenda because it's distracted loads of attention from your shaggy-style defence at the COVID inquiry. If you haven't been following or you didn't follow Rishi Sunak's testimony at the COVID inquiry, you should know that he can't remember anything. I seriously can't even remember. He can't remember. He can't remember anything. He can't remember he probably can't remember whether he can remember. He probably can't remember whether he remembered to go to the COVID inquiry. Such is the state of Rishi Sunak's memory. He probably can't remember whether he remembered to attend the COVID inquiry and what he could remember when he remember to go. Such is the state. If you think Swiss cheese has a lot of holes in it, you should meet Rishi Sunak's memory. He doesn't just not remember things. Sometimes just to zuzz stuff up a bit. He can't recall. I can't remember. I can't keep saying I can't remember. I've got to say something other than I can't. Oh, I know. I can't recall. I can't recall. I'll do 5 can't recalls and then I'll go back to the can't remembers. I don't remember. I don't recall. I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't recall. Someone should put it all together in a little. Someone already has. I may play it to you later. So on one level, he'll be quite relieved that the Rwanda debacle, which almost undermined, well, briefly. The problem is with Marc Francois. God, how long have you got? The problem is with this country that when you arrive in a position in which because of course he likes to style himself these days as a mafia don, so we will call him Marco Gambino Francois, You see him in a position of influence, however briefly and misplaced it may be, you know we've got problems. You see Marco Gambino Francois pushing himself to the front of the cameras. I don't know if you saw them yesterday. They're almost like... Eventually there will be 350 separate groups within the Parliamentary Conservative Party, every one of them with a quote, because this is an official designation, a very important leader, end quotes. Or there will be 175 separate groups within the Conservative Party, the New Conservatives, the Common Sense Conservatives, the Barking Mad Conservatives, the even more Barking Mad Conservatives, the Old Conservatives, the New Old Conservatives, the Old New Conservatives, the New Conservatives, the Old Conservatives, the really conservative Conservatives, the ultra-conservative Conservatives, the not that conservative Conservatives, the One Nation Conservatives, the European Research Group, the COVID Research Group, the Red Wall Research Group, the conservatives. I could go on. There'll be 175 separate groups within the Conservative Party, all of which have a very important leader and a very important deputy leader. And that would leave nobody. That would actually take up everybody. Every single member of the Parliamentary Conservative Party would then have a very important role. It struck me yesterday, and it struck Rory Bremner as well, who tweeted about it much more wittily than I will manage to convey to you. But it struck me yesterday, there's so many groups now. I don't even know what they disagree with each other about. There's so many different groups within the Conservative Party that you sort of wonder whether you can call it... Can you call it a party at all in any traditional sense? Let me just remind you. The problem is, I just made some up. I can't remember which ones I made up. I'm turning into Rishi Sunak. I can't remember which ones I made up and which ones are actually real. Can you? If I said a list of factions within the current Conservative Party, would you be confident that you would be able to remember which ones were real and which ones were not? The ERG, the NRG. I thought NRG was a form of dance music. Isn't it, Keith? NRG. So is that a real one? Is there an NRG? There is an NRG. There's definitely an ERG. Is ERG a form of dance music as well? It could be. So ERG, NRG, Common Sense Group, New Conservatives, Conservatives Growth Group. Is that a real one? Conservatives Growth Group? Conservatives... I mean, there might be a Conservatives group. All of the suspended MPs were back in the House of Commons yesterday. Not even Tories anymore, but they were so desperate for votes they allowed them to pass through the lobby, including the fella that was done for flashing not long ago, the rather infelicitously named Peter Bone. He's there. The One Nation Group and the People's Front of Judea. I think the last one is made up. This is Rory Bremner's tweet from last night. He wrote FFS. I do know what that stands for, but I can't tell you. Ofcom will be cross. There are now at least 6 Tory parties. ERG, NRG, Common Sense Group, New Conservatives, Conservative Growth Group, One Nation Group and the People's Front of Judea. And policy is being made up simply to keep them happy. And Rory Bremner wonders, wouldn't it be better to send them to Rwanda? I did indeed, thank you for that. I forgot the Popular Conservative Front. There is, of course, also the Popular Conservative Front. And all of this is a scenario over which Rishi Sunak, the breath of fresh air, the man who promised to bring back... I mean, goodness me, you almost feel sorry for people like Rory Bremner at times like this. How the hell do you do satire when this is reality? Because I caught myself then. I was about to say to you, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister who promised to restore professionalism, accountability and integrity, now presides over a party that can't even lace its own shoes. Professionalism, accountability and integrity. And it's not just him, they're all rubbish. So even the rebels ended up not rebelling yesterday. They all, Natasha Clark put it well earlier, they sort of marched up, they're halfway up the hill and then halfway down, and when they were up, they were up, and when they were down, they were down, and when they were only halfway up, they were neither up nor down. That's the sort of Mark Francois CV. When we were up, and when we were down, and when we were only halfway up, we were neither up nor down. That's what they did. They didn't even rebel in the end. A few of them abstained, but Rishi Sunak got the bill over the line. Labour Party sitting there doing their nails. I don't know if you saw it. The entire front bench were just filing their nails while the Tories were tearing each other to shreds. Occasionally, Keir Starmer just sort of looked up very lazily, like a sort of, I don't know, a lion sunbathing in the Serengeti. He looked up, he turned to his colleagues and said, "Never interrupt your enemy when they're tearing themselves to shreds." And then they all went back to filing their nails. And it was just extraordinary that our country has been reduced to this at a time of multiple crises, you know? Multiple crises. Various government ministers touring studios this morning. As far as I'm aware, not one of them was asked about the death of a refugee on that ludicrous Bibby Stockholm barge yesterday. Why? I don't know. Because a lot of journalists, I guess, are complicit in the Conservative catastrophe that has, it would appear, now caused the death of another refugee. Apparently there's a net zero scrutiny group as well, Chris tells me. And Charlotte in Prestwich says, "I can't believe you forgot the I can't believe it's not fascism group." I can't believe it's not fascism. It's 11 minutes past 10. You all right, by the way? I should have asked sooner. You okay? You getting on all right, are you? Good. Christmas around the corner? I know what you're thinking. You're not worrying about the cost of presents or turkeys or what you're going to do or when you're going to take an age. You're just thinking about Rwanda all the time, aren't you? Every pub I go into, they're all talking about Rwanda. Rwanda, 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 they say. When will it... Well, Rwanda. Rwanda forever. Rwanda, Rwanda. It's all that anyone talks about. I came out of church on Sunday. Everyone outside church talking about Rwanda. Get on the tube, get on the bus. Everyone's talking. No one cares about anything else. Everyone's talking. I'm lying. No one is talking about Rwanda. 1% of the population, according to some recent polling, very recent polling, before this vote happened, 1% of the population believe that Rishi Sunak's Rwanda plan is going to, quote, stop the boats. 1% of the population. More people believe the earth is flat than believe that Rishi Sunak is going to stop the boats with his ludicrous Rwanda plan that his government ministers, his senior colleagues are still touting round the studios to their heart's content. Everything is broken. That'll sound like I'm plugging my new book, How They Broke Britain. Published by Penguin, 6th week in succession in the Amazon Top 20. So thank you for that. But I'm not actually plugging it at this point because I don't want to say everything is broken. I want to say everything is bonkers. But that sounds a bit light-hearted. Bonkers is a word that has a patina of levity, doesn't it? Has a sort of layer of levity. I say bonkers, you think dizzy rascal. I say bonker. It's more than bonkers. It probably is broken. There's another word that begins with B that sums it up pretty well. But again, Ofcom would probably have a problem if I used that word on the radio. And all of this leads us back. Oh, Brian has reminded us that there's also the nice but dim group. We could make a list of all the groups, all the factions within the Conservative Party, but we'd be here until Sheila Fogarty started doing her warm-up vocal exercises. 10:13 is the time. Rishi Sunak was supposed to be a breath of fresh air. Rishi Sunak was supposed to be restoring professionalism, accountability and integrity, although in his defence, judging by his COVID inquiry testimony, it's perfectly possible that he'd forgotten that he was supposed to be or he couldn't remember that he was supposed to be restoring professionalism and accountability and integrity before he'd actually finished the speech in which he was promising to restore professionalism, accountability and integrity. And for a while he did seem to be a breath of fresh air, despite, of course, having broken COVID laws in Downing Street with Boris Johnson. And then it all went wrong, culminating today in the news, if it counts as news, that Rishi Sunak is now personally as unpopular as Boris Johnson was when he resigned as Prime Minister. And this polling was conducted just before last night's crunch vote. 70% of people now have an unfavourable opinion of Sunak. He's dropped 10 points just since late November, just since a couple of weeks ago. But Prime Ministers don't really get less popular than this.